Welcome to Exact Training. This lesson is on the Inventory Control module and how to issue transactions. During this lesson, you will learn how to process the three types of issue transactions: unplanned, shop, and subcontract. Let's get started with issue transactions. We will follow these steps. From the System Manager, we will open the Inventory Control module. We'll go to the Activity menu, Transactions, and the Issue tab. Then we will enter the Part ID, stock location, and quantity. Begin in the System Manager and select the Materials tab. And select the Inventory Control module. From there, choose the Activity menu and Transactions from the list. And the Transaction window appears. This lesson is on using the Issue tab, so choose that one. In the Transactions window, there are three main panes in this view. The upper left has the Transactions tabs, the upper right has the parts stock information, and the lower pane is a grid that allows you to process several transactions at one time. Before we dive into the module itself, there are some default settings that you should know about. You can see these by clicking on the Options menu, then on Preferences. These preferences are user-specific. In the Preferences window, you can decide which items to appear on certain screens or reports. If Display Costs is marked, the Cost Unit field displays on all transaction tabs except the Transfer tab. Also, Unit Cost and Extended Cost columns display on the transaction grid. When Display Due Quantities is marked, the Balance Due field displays on selected transactions tabs. Also, the values displayed in the Transaction Grid Quantities column after a query match the value displayed in the Balance Due field for each order. When Display Due Quantities is not marked, the Balance Due field does not display on the selected Transaction tab. A zero value displays in the Transaction Grid Quantities columns for all line items after a query. To display on-hand quantities on the Cycle Count tab, mark the checkbox next to Display on-hand quantities in the Cycle Count box. So if you want one of these items to appear, you will need to place a check mark in this window. Let's take a look at the results of configuring these settings. We will go ahead and place a check mark in each item. Once the checks have been placed, click OK. Then close the Transaction window and reopen it so the window can refresh with your new choices. Now back on the Issue tab, we see there are a few more fields that were not appearing here before. They are there now because we went to the Options menu and then the Preferences window and added those check marks. On the Issue tab, to enter multiple issues at one time, you will use the Transaction grid in the lower portion of the screen. You will enter the information, highlight the lines that you want to process, and then click the Process button to process all of the issues at once. As you enter information, pressing the arrow keys on the keyboard moves the active cursor from cell to cell in the grid. Max generates an error log if any errors, such as insufficient stock, occur during the issue transaction. Click the Logs button on the Issues tab to view or print the log file using Notepad. Max supports three types of issue transactions: unplanned, shop or master scheduled, and subcontract. Unplanned issues will remove items from inventory without issuing them to an open manufacturing order. Perhaps you broke a part and are going to scrap it as an example. or it's being used in an R&D project that isn't using a shop order to track that work. Shop orders, master scheduled orders, and subcontract issues all work the same way. Let's issue a shop order, so select that option. Now we will enter the part we are issuing. Enter it manually or double-click to select it from the browser. In the order number field, either enter the full order number or double-click in the field to select it from the browser. Once you enter the number, the primary stock ID set in the Part Master is displayed. You can overwrite this or manually select it from the browser. Now let's enter the quantity to issue. You can override the normal GL accounts used for an issue transaction by selecting an override account in the GL reference box. For unplanned issues, this field is required. Double-click to select it from the browser. For this transaction, we're going to let the normal GL account be used. So click the Process button to issue the part. Simple as that. Now let's issue all parts for a shop order. Enter the order number or double-click the field to select it from the browser. And the Order Master Part browser will open. Click the Search button to look for all available items. When you find the one you'd like to use, double-click to add it to the Transactions tab. The Quantity field is the quantity of the parent part that you want to issue components for, not the quantity of the component you want to issue. This will make sense in a moment. If you would like Max to deduct the planned scrap setup in the bill of materials for this part, click this button. Max allows you to put parts back in stock as part of the manufacturing process. These parts are called byproducts. If you want to show these parts, check this box. When you do the issue transaction, the part will show as a negative quantity, and that quantity will be put back into stock instead of issued. Now click the Query button to see the components due for this order. This order has only one component. The quantity field will show the amount of components required to manufacture the quantity of parent parts shown in the parent quantity field above. This is based on the quantity per for the bill of materials for this parent component relationship. In our example, you can see the quantity field is highlighted. This indicates that you are going to issue more than is necessary for the order. You can see that the due quantity field shows only 24.5 parts are required. This shows that a previous issue for this component has already been done. Let's reduce the quantity to only what is due. Just overwrite the current quantity. Now we just need to select the rows to be issued. If there were more parts on this order, we could select all rows or only specific rows, just like you would do in an Excel spreadsheet. Once we have the rows selected, click the Process button to issue the parts. And that's all there is to it. When finished entering and processing information, you may leave this tab. Click the Activity menu and select Exit. And you will return to the System Manager. In review, today we have learned how to issue transactions. There are three types: unplanned, shop, and subcontract. Thank you for participating in Exact Training.